Hey everyone, today I'd like to talk to you about ExcaliBrain, explain to you what ExcaliBrain is, and show you how it is transforming the way I'm using Obsidian. So let's start with the question, what is ExcaliBrain? And first of all, ExcaliBrain was inspired by two different inputs. One is the brain application, which I've used for almost 2 decades and has really been transformational in the way I think about personal knowledge management and I think about graph databases. And second is the breadcrumbs plugin, which introduced the use of data view fields to create directional links in your Obsidian database. And it has provided me some ideas of how I could convert my markdown documents in Obsidian into a graph that looks very much like the brain application does. So ExcaliBrain is based on 2 plugins, so it uses 2 plugins for its architecture. Partly it is based on ExcaliDraw. And ExcaliDraw is simply the engine behind displaying the graph. And I made this design choice because I wanted to experiment with the automation capabilities of ExcaliDraw, as well as I'm hoping that maybe some other developers get inspired by the possibilities of automating with ExcaliDraw, and we will see other cool plugins and capabilities built around ExcaliDraw in Obsidian. And also I think using ExcaliDraw for the visualization creates an opportunity that you can easily create a snapshot of your graph in ExcaliBrain and then continue to edit it in ExcaliDraw for demonstration purposes. And secondly, ExcaliBrain is based on Obsidian DataView, and DataView is the underlying engine that provides the insights such as the fields in the document that I use to create the graph that is then displayed by ExcaliBrain. To answer the question, what is ExcaliBrain? My simplest answer is it is a tool to visualize hierarchy in your vault. I have talked about the latch principle a number of times. Latch stands for location, alphabet, time, category, and hierarchy. And latch, let's just use a bit ExcaliBrain. And latch was a term that I read about in Information Anxiety, and Information Anxiety is a book by Richard Saul Wurman. And in short, these 5 principles that are part of the hat track are the 5 basic ways how you can organize information. There is really no other way if you think about it. And my advocacy is that when you map your knowledge in your personal knowledge management system, you should make every effort to map information against all of these categories. And I have a number of different videos on these topics of using MapView or using your daily notes to structure your information. And then with a bit of a longer definition, ExcaliBrain is an interactive structured mind map of your Obsidian vault generated based on the folders and files in your vault and the links, data view fields, tags, and YAML front matter in your markdown files. And then looking a bit more into what you will see or what you see on an ExcaliBrain graph view, there are different relationships that are displayed. Nodes have children, they have parents. There are lateral connections I call friends, and nodes have siblings as well. If we look at the spatial representation, then The node is at the center. That is the document that is currently open and active. Children are below that node. Parents are above. Friends are to the left. And siblings are to the right. So if we look here, you can see that this document, the drawing that we were talking about, has a number of children. It has one lateral node or a friend node, and it has 3 parents. At the moment, I have siblings turned off, but if I turn on siblings, then you see that there are a number of siblings, and the siblings are the children of the parent nodes. In this case, I have many siblings because I'm displaying the tag category as well, and the ExcaliDraw tag has a number of drawings. So if I hide the tag, then the number of siblings will decrease, because now I'm not looking at the ExcaliDraw drawings in my documents, only looking at the children of these objects. So for example, the children of this folder are the attachments and the video folder, and the children of the Obsidian ExcaliBrain folder are the documents that we saw when I started this whole presentation. Also, looking at these relationships, you will see that some of these nodes are blue, some are white, some are yellow. You can customize the look and feel, and I'll talk about this customization in just a second. So getting back to our drawing, the last question I want to touch in answering the question, what is ExcaliBrain, is how relationships are derived. And there are 2 types of relationships. There are inferred relationships and there are explicit relationships. Explicit relationships are the easier ones. These are specified using data view fields. And inferred relationships are relationships there is not a specific data view field explaining what the relationship between 2 nodes are, but I'm making an assumption based on the way these links are placed. So if you have a file and it has a forward link to another file, then I consider the file that has the forward link to the other one to be the parent and the linked file to be the child. If there's a backlink to a file, then I infer that the document that has the backlink to this document is the parent of the document. If I have 2 files that are mutually pointing at each other, then I consider the relationship to be lateral and I treat them as friends. And the simplest one is the siblings, because the children of all the parents are my siblings. So let's look at some of these on this graph. I'm going to turn off siblings now. And so you can see that today's date is a friend of this drawing. And if I open today's daily notes page, then you will see that here I have a data view field called working on, and I have the link what is ExcaliBrain. By placing this data view field, I give additional information to ExcaliBrain to be able to figure out what that relationship is like. If I go to ExcaliBrain settings, then you will see that my friends, I have different fields that describe a friend relationship, and one of those fields are the working on field. If I look at the graph, then you will see that in this case, Sunday is with white letters. To me, that signifies that it is an explicitly defined relationship. These ones here, like Obsidian Data View, are inferred relationships and they are children. The reason is simple. In this case, you can see that I have Obsidian Data View right here. If I open this, you can see I have a link to Obsidian Data View. So I have a link in this document to Obsidian Data View, and therefore ExcaliBrain infers that Data View is a child of this node. And similarly, I have Obsidian ExcaliBrain up here, which is a parent of what is ExcaliBrain. And if I navigate to this node and I look at the document itself, you will see that this document has several children, and one of them is the what is ExcaliBrain document, and that's how this relationship becomes explicitly defined. So the letter or the text is white, as well as when I have ExcaliBrain open, then Obsidian ExcaliBrain is in the top section of the document. Now, moving on to the second question, how has ExcaliBrain transformed the way I use Obsidian? And there are a number of different ways how that is happening. So let me start with this topic of typifying relationships. And I've already shared quite some amount about this in the previous couple of minutes. The way you typify relationships is using data view fields. And data view fields are very simple to create. You type in a couple of words at the beginning of a paragraph or a row in your document, and you finish it with a double colon, and that becomes a field. So for example, from, inspired by, author, these are different fields. And then you can see that I have different type of fields and relationships, and we saw this in settings in a moment ago, but just to dive a bit deeper here, some of my parent relationships are based on, author, source, inspired by, from, and using these different words help me contextualize the text, the paragraph I write in the document. So for example, here you can see that latch is from Information Anxiety 2. It is referred to on page 69, and in ExcaliBrain, this is the relationship that you saw also a couple of minutes ago. Information anxiety, my literature notes about information anxiety are on top, and latch is on bottom, and I know the type of relationship. Child relationships are, for example, supports or consists of. Friend or lateral relationships are these that similar to example, sponsor, date started, date finished, working on. These are all ways to express a lateral relationship. And also I have directional relationships, so it makes a difference if I have two files, file A and B, and which one has the data view field. And based on this, I can create directed relationships. So for example, here I have Obsidian ExcaliBrain is inspired by the brain and breadcrumbs. And you can see that the graph will look like this, that first of all, the brain and breadcrumbs are parents to ExcaliBrain because they are the inspiration, and you also see a direction of the arrow. And in settings, the way you set this up is you define the inspired by relationship, and then you can select inspired by as a relationship from this drop-down list, and you can add your own customization of how that link should look like. So moving on, using ExcaliBrain has helped me to move to more atomic nodes. And this is because if I don't have atomic nodes, then I end up with very cluttered views of the graph. And that is because everything is linked directly to the document. And the way to overcome this is to use embeds much more strategically. This also means that I've started to use the Note Refactor plugin, which is a great tool to cut a larger document into smaller parts. And I've also applied a bit of CSS magic. I'm happy to share this piece of CSS. It's nothing very complex. All this does is when I embed a document into a page in Obsidian. So for example, like in this case, this is an example. I have a video about how I manage meetings and meeting notes. You can see that in this case, in this document, it's a bit hard to see the darker color, but Bob the Builder is part of my daily notes page, but everything below Bob is a transclusion. And actually on Bob's page, I have another transclusion for Project K, and you can see the continuing content right there. And the same with Project B. This is still in the core daily notes page, but then the notes under it for my meeting that day are transcluded. I'll put the link to this video. It's called It's About Time, and you can learn more about how I manage my daily notes and these meeting notes. What I want to show you here is, as a result, my ExcaliBrain layout looks much more simple. Don't look at the dashed lines. This is my demo database and it's all configured for different tests. But what I want to show you is that the Thursday document has only a couple of links. Some links here. I have Bob the Builder here and I have Project B. The reason they are inferred friends is because also on Bob's page, I have the link back to Thursday as I have the link to Bob here on the daily notes page. And that's why it's also blue, because it's an inferred link. And I personally prefer that in case of my daily notes, all of the notes that I'm taking are considered to be lateral connections, not a child of that day. If I want to change this, I could add a data view field here and specify the relationship. I can even add a data view field in front of a transclusion, so that would also work. And then I can move Bob if I want to be a child or a parent or whatever relationship I like. The point I want to make right here is I have a much less cluttered view, because here you can see a reference to Muck, and here you can see a reference to Project K, and you can see a reference to Rolly and Project C. So you have all these references that do not show on this diagram. I would need to navigate into Project B or Bob to see those details. Now moving on, the other huge benefit of using ExcaliBrain is suddenly virtual notes. Virtual notes are links to files that haven't been created yet. Virtual notes suddenly have a role in navigating my graph. So in this case, I can navigate to, you can see here, Tag Wrangler, which is an awesome Obsidian plugin. If you want to manage your tags, I recommend trying Tag Wrangler. But right now, what I want to show you is I reference Tag Wrangler under the Obsidian plugins document as a child. And I also reference Tag Wrangler under my storyboard for gardening in my vault. And there it is referenced as a jump, a friend relationship. And in this case, in ExcaliBrain, I am able to click on this virtual note. This is a note that doesn't have a file yet. And I can see still the relationships, the parent and the friend relationship as well. I think this is really very helpful and cool. I found that I have lots of virtual notes in my vault, and suddenly I started to see connections between different parts of my vault through these uncreated documents. And then finally, I think ExcaliBrain is also very cool. In my personal experience, it has started to take over the navigation of my Vault. So instead of using the file navigator here or file explorer, and instead of using the tag pane right here, I'm using ExcaliBrain to navigate through my folders, my tags, my notes, my virtual notes seamlessly in one integrated experience. And all of these different structures, the tag hierarchies, the folder hierarchies, and the node connections suddenly come to life, and they provide me a much richer context to my Obsidian Vault. And finally, I just wanted to quickly show you around the ExcaliBrain settings so you get a better sense of what type of settings you can do. First, at the top, you see I have a setting for the file path of the ExcaliBrain drawing. This is a consequence of my design decision to use ExcaliDraw as the engine for ExcaliBrain. This means that I must have a file in my Vault that is open, and when I'm navigating ExcaliBrain, ExcaliBrain in reality is just a document, an ExcaliDraw document that has some automation, and you can specify the file that you want to use for that. The default is ExcaliBrain.md, but you might want to call it whatever else or place it to another location. Then you can define the different hierarchies, and these hierarchies can be the parents, the children, and the friends. Here you need to provide the comma-separated list of data view fields that you want to use to define the type of relationship a certain node has to another node. I have a couple of display options. By the way, most of these display options are now included as buttons at the top of ExcaliBrain under the search bar. You have some file paths that you might want to exclude. So for example, you could put here your templates folder. At the moment it's empty for me, but I should probably really put here templater folder. So this is my folder for that. So from now on, ExcaliBrain will exclude from its indexing and display all my templates, and it won't clutter my views. And then you have all these different type of relationships. Each of these has a button. You can hide virtual nodes, you can hide folders, tags. You have a couple of options. You can also display or hide attachments. And you don't need to come into settings. You can actually do this here as with these buttons right here. So it's a convenient and easy access, but it's also available here in settings. So there's a maximum number of nodes to display as children or friends or whatever of a node. This is because some nodes have potentially hundreds of links, and then you end up with a very cluttered view. My mindset is I'm looking for a simple, easy to understand graph, and I think that if I have more than 40 items as children or as siblings on it, it's not going to be useful anyway. I need to create atomic nodes. I need to make it more structured. But you can set this number to whatever you like. You can go up to 150 if you want. I keep it at a fairly low number of 40. Then you can do styling. You can set the canvas color, and you can set the style of the different type of nodes. Nodes get their style based on their type. So you have the inferred nodes, the virtual nodes, you have the nodes in the center, that's called central node, you have the siblings, you have the attachments, the folders. Those are some built-in type of nodes, but also if you add categories to pages. So for example, I think you noticed that my ExcaliBrain drawings have this palette on them, or if I come back here, then you can see that my ExcaliBrain has this plugin icon, etc. You can define these relationships based on, let me just show you this document. So in this case, you can see that this is Obsidian plugins. That's the category of this node. And in settings, I have Obsidian plugins listed here. It's a comma separated list of the tags I want to format. And I can choose Obsidian plugins here. And you can see, well, it's hard to see, but you can see the plug there. So I can define the prefix, and I can define a number of other parameters as well. The way this works is everything is inherited from the base node style, and whatever you specify. So let's look at my ExcaliBrain drawing. You can see here I override the prefix, as well as I override the border color, and I override the font family of the node as well. So my ExcaliBrain drawings look like this in the graph view. And then moving on, you can do the same with the link types. So remember, the links were defined up here. The link types are your data view fields. And then down here, again, I have a couple of built-in link types: inferred, folder, tag link. But then all of my different type of links I can define here one by one. So let's, for example, look for the inspired by type, and you can see here that the inspired by type is this yellow arrow, and you can see the logic is the same. You have the base link type, and you can override the base link type using these toggles down here. And then finally, I just want to show you two more things. If I come to this page, and if I click this right here, then there's a list of items before I start to search. This is a search bar, by the way. And if I look for a document, so if I look for example, the brain, then I could navigate to my thought about the brain. But if this field is empty, then you see a list of items here. These are the same as your, oh, I need to minimize this. These are the same as your starred document. So you can see here, I have my favorites, and this is a core plugin called starred. And if you want a document to appear in that shortcut, you can star the document like this. And now if I open ExcaliBrain, then yeah, I need to wait. I need to do a change here so it refreshes, because right now the index didn't recognize that I've added something to start. Now it will. Now if I open this, then you can see here that the brain was added, and these are my home thoughts. I can immediately navigate to this thought right here, for example, HomeMD, and you can see the different topics I have listed on my map of content, my home map of content. So that's one thing I wanted to show you. There's two more things I wanted to show you. One is I have this feature to pin the document to a specific pane. It is a bit tricky. Let me convert this. Oops. Let me convert this. I want to dock this hover editor into workspace. So I've docked it like this. So let me show you how the pin works. First of all, I'm going to split this window vertically. Actually, I want it to be split horizontally. And what I want is, so now if I navigate to a file here, for example, to Splunking. If I open this document, then the graph navigates to this page as well. And then if I navigate to something else on this side, for example, I navigate to unicycling, then again the graph changes. And if now I click on MOC Home, then the view changes, and some people find this a bit confusing because it's all of the different panes changing. You can pin ExcaliBrain to one pane, and the way you do it is you select this work pane, and when it's selected you click the pin button, and from now on when I'm navigating here, it's always going to change that view. And if I navigate to a document here, then that is not going to change this view. So ExcaliBrain is now only listening to this workspace right here. And I think that can be helpful. So again, if you look at this, if I navigate to my programming MOC, then you can see that it was opened in this pane, and that is because of the pin button. And the very last thing I want to show you is this pencil button. If I press the pencil, then the drawing is open in a new pane. And from now on, this is a drawing that I can edit. And if I want, I can save it with a different name. You see it received automatically a name. This is a snapshot of my graph view on the right hand side. And this is useful if you want to create snapshots and you want to add some additional content around those snapshots. So that was all I wanted to share with you today. And let me just again convert this into a hover editor and make this full screen. And let's just get back to what is ExcaliBrain right here. So let's navigate back to this page. So in today's video, we talked about what ExcaliBrain is and what it's based on. And then we also looked at how it has started to transform the way I use Obsidian. I hope you found this presentation helpful, and I hope that this has helped you learn more about ExcaliBrain. ExcaliBrain right now is not yet available in the community plugin store. You need to use Obsidian Brat to install it. I will link the video explaining to you how to do that in the description. So if you want to install it, it is really a couple of clicks. It's not very hard. And with watching that video, you will be able to install ExcaliBrain for yourself. Thank you.